Welcome to another deep dive, you guys.
Hmm.
Today we're going to be tackling John 10:11,
Okay.
but with a bit of a twist.
Hmm.
We figure you already know the verse by heart, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
most of our listeners, you're probably looking for something a little bit deeper than surface level stuff, you know?
Right.
You want to find like a fresh illustration or a new angle to really make your teaching sing. So
Exactly.
we've got a whole stack of sermons and analyses on John 10:11 here.
Wow.
Our mission is to dig in and find those hidden gems that can really, help you connect with your congregation.
I love it.
And I'll be honest, even I'm surprised by some of the directions these pastors went with this verse.
Oh, really?
It's pretty fascinating.
One thing that really stood out to me was the sheer variety in theological themes.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, a lot of sermons focused on that personal relationship with Jesus,
Right.
but others, they went deeper. They explored stuff like leadership and sacrifice
Mm.
and even God's provision, but in kind of unexpected ways.
Okay, let's get into that. For example, the Browns Bridge Church sermon, they actually challenged that classic image of green pastures
Oh, yeah.
by pointing out the actual landscape where David shepherded. It wasn't exactly paradise.
No, not at all. Their point was that the whole region is actually pretty arid.
Right.
So those green pastures, they're probably more like small little patches of grass, those vital grazing spots.
Mm.
It makes you think about God's provision in a totally different light.
Doesn't it? It's not always about like overflowing abundance.
Mm-hmm.
It's about God showing up and providing exactly what we need, even when we're in the middle of what feels like a total desert.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a powerful message for anyone going through tough times.
absolutely.
But it's also a reminder for us, as pastors,
Yeah.
to be looking for those signs of God's provision, even in places that seem unexpected.
I think it challenges us as well to rethink our assumptions about what blessing actually looks like.
Right.
Maybe it's not always, comfort and ease.
Right.
Maybe sometimes it's that sustaining presence of God even when things are difficult.
Wow. I'm already seeing how this could spark a whole sermon series.
Yeah.
Okay, another interesting contrast I noticed. The Mountain Lake Alliance, they really focused on finding contentment in God's care.
Hmm.
But then you've got RLC-SAC TV, and the emphasized dependence on God is a good thing.
Okay.
I'm like, can those two ideas even work together?
That is a great question.
They seem almost contradictory.
I think it gets to the heart of what it really means to be one of those sheep following the Good Shepherd.
Okay.
Like, on the surface, contentment, it can sound kind of passive,
Right, just accepting whatever.
Exactly.
But dependence sounds needy.
Yeah, and some people might even see that as a weakness.
So how do we bring those two ideas together?
Well, think of it this way. Contentment, it isn't about complacency,
Hmm.
It's about having that deep peace and security that comes from knowing the Good Shepherd's got you covered.
Hmm.
But that constant care, that provision, it invites us to depend on him more.
Okay.
So it's not about being weak, right? It's about recognizing we need his guidance and his wisdom, his protection.
So it's like the more content we are in his care,
Yeah,
the more we realize just how much we need him.
exactly. It's this beautiful paradox. The more we trust in the Good Shepherd, the more we lean on him. And that just brings us closer to him.
Wow. I haven't heard it put that way before. That's making me rethink how I talk about those things. Speaking of needing guidance, I have to share this story from the Lockport Alliance Church sermon.
Okay.
They talked about this flock of sheep
Mm-hmm.
that blindly followed each other off a cliff.
Oh, no.
I know, the tragic image.
Yeah.
But it's also a powerful reminder about the dangers of blind faith, even when we have good intentions.
It's true. Sometimes we can get so caught up in following the crowd that we forget to think for ourselves.
Right. And as pastors,
Yeah.
we're called to be the shepherds who guide people towards the truth.
Absolutely. We can't just blindly follow along.
It really emphasizes how important discernment is.
Yes.
We have to help our congregations develop that ability to test everything against what God's word says.
And sometimes making that truth relatable takes a little humor,
Okay.
which is where I think the RLC SAC TV sermon really shines. They use this analogy of a busted Honda Civic
Okay.
to represent an unreliable leader.
I love that.
They contrast it with the Good Shepherd who's always there for us.
It's brilliant.
It's funny, but it makes you think, too. We often get stuck using that kind of lofty theological language, but something as simple as a beat-up car,
Yeah.
it suddenly makes the Good Shepherd's dependability feel real.
It's true. I mean, who hasn't had car trouble at the worst possible time?
Exactly.
You need someone you can count on, someone who won't leave you stranded.
And that's what the Good Shepherd offers.
Yeah.
That constant, unwavering presence, no matter what you're going through, he's the ultimate reliable ride.
Okay, I love that. Now, the Brownsbridge Church sermon, they really threw down a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
They said it's not enough to just believe in Jesus. We have to actively follow him. Now, how can pastors address that without scaring away people who are new to the faith?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's a fine line to walk.
For sure.
I think the key is to frame it as an invitation to a deeper, more fulfilling life.
Okay.
It's not about rules or burdens.
Right.
It's about showing people the joy and the adventure that come with walking with Jesus every single day.
So it's about taking that step from passive belief into an active, vibrant relationship with the Good Shepherd.
Exactly. And I think that's where all these different sermons start to come together.
Mm.
They all point to the fact that John 10:11, it's not just a nice sounding verse.
Right.
It's a call to action. It's a guide for how we live our lives, both as sheep and as shepherds.
So we've got this idea of God's provision, even in scarcity,
Yeah.
that balance between contentment and dependence, the importance of being able to discern the truth,
Right.
and this call to actively follow Jesus. It's amazing how much depth we're uncovering in just this one verse.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
Before we go too far, though,
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at the biblical context surrounding John 10:11. You know, it's like those suggested pairings you see on a wine list.
Okay.
You can enjoy the wine on its own,
Sure.
but sometimes those pairings bring out hidden flavors and nuances you might not have noticed otherwise.
I like that analogy.
And it's true. Understanding the bigger picture can really unlock a whole new level of meaning.
It's all connected.
Several of the sermons actually use cross-references to shed light on John 10:11
That's awesome.
in really insightful ways.
I can't wait to hear more.
Me too. Let's dig into those next.
I mean, so many of these sermons, they referenced Psalm 23.
Yeah,
You know, the one that paints that classic image of the shepherd leading his flock to green pastures and still waters?
it's like the perfect parallel to John 10:11.
Right.
Like you see those themes of guidance and provision and protection
Yeah.
echoed so clearly in both passages.
Mhm.
It's like the same thread woven through two different tapestries.
I love that. And then you've got Matthew 18.1-13.
Oh yeah, the parable of the lost sheep.
Exactly. It's that shepherd leaving the 99 to go find that one, the lost sheep.
Mm-hmm.
It just emphasizes that relentless love, that pursuit.
Yeah.
You know, reminding us that no one is too far gone for the Good Shepherd.
And the LLC Sec TV sermon, they use that passage to highlight how sacrificial that love is.
Oh, yeah.
Like the shepherd is willing to leave the safety and comfort of the flock to go after the one who needs him.
It's powerful. It really challenges us to think about how we as pastors
Yeah.
can show that same kind of sacrificial love to our congregations.
Right. Are we willing to go that extra mile for the people who are hurting or lost?
It's a question we all need to ask ourselves.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And, you know, speaking of powerful imagery, so
Mhm.
many of these sermons relied on the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Where shepherds were such a central figure.
It wasn't just a job back then, it was a whole way of life. A relationship built on trust and dependence.
You think about the prophets.
Yeah.
They use that shepherd analogy all the time.
All the time to describe God's relationship with his people.
Like Isaiah 40, Jeremiah 23, Ezekiel 34.
So many good ones.
They all contrast God as that caring, gentle shepherd
Right.
with those false shepherds who neglect and exploit their flocks.
It reminds us that true leadership isn't about power.
Right.
It's about serving and protecting the people you're responsible for.
It's about embodying those qualities of the Good Shepherd.
Absolutely.
Faithfulness, compassion, a willingness to lay down your life for the sheep.
Exactly.
And this next one's interesting. The Solid Rock Community Sermon, they went deep on the Davidic covenant
Okay.
and connected back to John 10:11.
Yeah, they drew a direct line from David, that shepherd king, to Jesus, the good shepherd, who fulfills that promise of an eternal kingdom.
So it's bigger than just personal salvation.
Right.
It's about being part of this huge story
This cosmic kingdom.
where Jesus is the ultimate shepherd king.
Yeah. It gives John 10:11 a whole new dimension.
It really does. I need a little refresher, though, on the Davidic covenant.
Oh, sure.
I'm sure some of our listeners could use one, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the Davidic covenant, It's this unconditional promise that God made to King David
Okay.
that his descendants would rule forever,
Mm-hmm.
establishing an everlasting kingdom.
And you can find that in Tef Samuel chapter 7.
That's right. Now, the Solid Rock Community Sermon, they pointed out that Jesus, as a descendant of David,
Yes.
he fulfills that covenant.
He's not just our Savior,
He's the King of Kings,
the ultimate shepherd king.
ruling over everything.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So when we see that connection between David and Jesus,
Yeah.
it takes John 10:11 beyond just a comforting verse about being saved.
It's about something much bigger.
It's about being part of something truly grand.
Cosmic, even.
And it changes how we think about following the Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
It's not just about personal piety.
It's about playing an active role in building his kingdom here and now.
Aligning our lives with his will.
Seeking his guidance.
Working to make things right.
Exactly.
Wow. These cross-references, they're adding so much to our understanding of John 10:11.
They really are. It's like each one shines a different light on the verse.
Right.
Showing us new things we hadn't even considered before.
It reminds us that the Bible, it's all connected.
It's one big story.
Okay, so we've talked about these cross-references, these echoes of John 10:11 throughout Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
But what really stood out to me was how these sermons used real-world examples
Oh, yeah.
to make these ancient truths come alive.
They were saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is what this looks like in your life today.
Exactly. Like the Mountain Lake Alliance sermon, they talked about giving sheep freedom from fear and tension and hunger
Yeah.
so they can lie down peacefully in those green pastures.
It's a beautiful way of saying that we as humans,
Yeah.
we need that same sense of peace and security
Right.
to really rest in God's care.
It's not just about physical comfort.
It's about creating an environment where people feel safe and loved
Accepted.
so they can experience that deep inner peace that comes from knowing the Good Shepherd's got them.
And speaking of relatable illustrations,
Yeah.
we can't forget that RLC SAC TV sermon with the busted Honda Civic,
Oh, man, that was a good one.
comparing a beat-up car to an unreliable leader versus the Good Shepherd who always has your back.
It's such a clever way to get the point across about God's faithfulness,
It's true because we've all had car trouble at some point.
right?
And you realize in those moments how much you need a reliable ride.
Someone who won't leave you stranded.
Exactly. And that's what the Good Shepherd offers.
Yeah.
That unwavering dependability, no matter what you're going through.
He's always there.
Now, on a more serious note, I keep thinking about that story from the Lockport Alliance Church.
About the sheep.
Yeah, blindly following each other off a cliff.
It's hard to forget.
It's a scary reminder of how easy it is to be led astray.
Even with the best intentions.
It shows us how important it is to be discerning
To seek wise counsel.
and to ultimately trust in the Good Shepherd's guidance.
Even when it doesn't make sense to us.
It's like that saying, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump too?
Right?
Spiritually speaking, we need to be careful who we're following,
Absolutely.
making sure our steps are guided by the Good Shepherd.
Not just the crowd.
And that leads us to another big theme that came up in these sermons.
Okay.
The idea that we're not just passively led by the Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
We're called to actively follow him,
We have to put our faith into action.
walk in his footsteps.
Obey his commands.
But how do we preach that
Yeah.
without overwhelming people or making them feel like it's too much?
It's all about the presentation.
Right.
We need to present it as an invitation to an adventure,
A journey of growth and discovery.
not a list of rules.
It's about highlighting the joy and the fulfillment that come from following the Good Shepherd.
That peace and security we find in his presence.
And that brings us to a fascinating point made by the Radiant Church sermon.
They pointed out that sheep, they're kind of prone to wandering off. Getting lost, getting into trouble.
They don't exactly have a reputation for being the sharpest tools in the shed.
No, they don't. It's almost like they have this built-in instinct for adventure.
Right. Even if it means heading straight into danger.
It's funny, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah. We humans, we like to explore too.
Mm.
Push the boundaries sometimes, even when it's not a good idea.
And that's where the Good Shepherd comes in.
Right. He's always there calling us back.
Guiding us back to safety.
Back to where we can find what we need.
It's a good reminder that we're not meant to go through life alone.
Nope. We need the Good Shepherd's voice to guide us.
Through those ups and downs.
The twists and turns, the good times and the bad.
And sometimes that guidance comes in ways we don't expect.
Right. Like, remember that point from the Brownsbridge church sermon?
About David leading his sheep through rough terrain.
Yeah. They challenged that picture of lush green pastures,
It was more about finding those little patches of grass.
those hidden oases in the wilderness.
Exactly.
It's such a strong metaphor for how God provides for us.
Even when things are tough.
Even when we don't see a way out,
It's about trusting that he's with us every step of the way,
no matter what.
even when the path is hard or confusing.
It's about recognizing that his provision,
It might not look like what we think it should.
but it'll always be what we need,
He knows where to find those green patches.
even when we can't.
It's a message of hope for those who are struggling.
Yeah, a reminder that even when things feel barren,
God is faithful.
he's always there.
And that brings us back to the core of John 10:11.
That declaration of the Good Shepherd's love,
He's careful.
his willingness to sacrifice everything for his sheep,
It's a love that goes beyond words,
the love that's shown through actions,
through sacrifice.
through that constant pursuit of what's best for us,
And that's the message we need to share.
with everyone.
Our congregations, our small groups, anyone who's searching for meaning in this life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into John 10:11, what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's this John 10:11. It's not just a pretty verse.
Right.
It's an invitation to a deeper relationship with the Good Shepherd,
It's a call to follow him wherever he leads.
and a promise that he'll never leave us.
It's a reminder that we're not alone,
We have a shepherd who loves us,
who cares for us,
who guides us.
even when things get rough.
And for those of you listening who are pastors and Bible study leaders,
Yeah.
I hope this deep dive has given you some fresh ideas
New illustrations.
and a renewed passion for sharing this incredible passage with your people.
We've explored so much today.
Yeah.
God's provision,
Contentment and dependence,
discernment.
active followership.
It's amazing what we can find when we really dig into the Bible.
And we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to discover,
More to learn.
more to be challenged by.
So keep exploring John 10:11.
Meditate on it.
Let it shape your life.
Your ministry.
And if something really resonated with you today,
Yeah.
share it.
With your congregation.
Your
or
small group.
even with us.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time,
Keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep following the Good Shepherd
he's always leading us.
towards green pastures and still waters.